CNN has emerged as President Trump's favorite media foil. Now the network's given its nemesis new fodder for criticism, with a weird explanation for a decision not to identify the subject of a story. If it's a day ending in Y, President Trump is probably tweeting angrily about the media. But this tweet was different. It took old footage of Trump participating in a pro wrestling match and imposed the CNN logo on the face of the guy he was beating up. So CNN did some digging and traced the video's origin.
It's apparently first posted by a Reddit user who goes by this online name.
For CNN and many others, this story was about potential incitement to violence and the president taking cues from someone who's expressed hateful views online.
The Anti-Defamation League, which surveyed the user's post and found a consistent record of racism, anti-Semitism, and bigotry.
But now it's CNN taking heat after saying it didn't disclose that Reddit user's name because he has issued an apology, showed his remorse, and is not going to repeat this ugly behavior on social media again. The network added, CNN reserves the right to publish his identity should any of that change. Conservatives cried foul.
So a network pursues a guy over a joke about them, then after he's spooked, they grant him safety unless he misbehaves.
The president wasn't impressed either.
CNN has really taken it too seriously, and I think they've hurt themselves very badly.
And whatever you think of Trump as a media critic, he may have a point. So I cannot think of another time that a decision about disclosing someone's identity in a media report was linked to their penitence or lack thereof. This strikes me as a really weird move on CNN's part. Am I missing anything?
No, I think it was weird. I mean, I think you could have easily defended the idea of not naming him. Right, you could have said this is a guy who did not anticipate publicity. It's not his fault that Trump decided to pick, his little vile thing and just throw it out into the world. That's not his fault. You could justify that. You could also justify naming him because he's someone who has made a series of anti-Semitic and racist comments and is apparently of some sort of position of influence that his work reaches the president. I think both of those are defensible. What isn't really defensible is this in-between position where CNN sort of appoints itself the arbiter of goodness and decides whether or not someone, at a certain level this sort of thing happens all the time because reporters are always making decisions about what to include in a story, what not to include in a story, and those are not always based on hard and fast rules. Sometimes they are based on saying, well, I'm not going to name the mother of this kid who got shot without, or whatever it may be. There are a lot of gray areas here, but putting it out there in this way was, I think, a big mistake on the part of the editors and CNN executives who apparently added this into Andrew Kaczynski's story.
One point worth noting before we go further is that this video seems to have been changed slightly from when it was posted on Reddit to when it was tweeted out by the president. And he has said, I believe through intermediaries, that he didn't get it from Reddit. So there's still a little mystery about how it got from point A to point B. Joanna, what do you think?
Well, I feel like this is part of, and we'll be talking about this further in the show, this whole media posture that's developed over the past few months of opposition to Trump, and the danger for the media is that we get from, hey, he's keeping us from doing our jobs, which is a legit critique, to, hey, we're at war and he's playing dirty, which is a problematic critique. And as soon as you start to, as CNN is doing, I think you rightly pointed out, start to act like you're arbitrating what's right, what's good, what's moral, you're getting into a posture where you can understand why the people who disagree with you are not going to trust you. And that's the problem that CNN has, is mistrust.
We're at a moment where every news organization that is covering President Trump has to be careful to really do their best to get it right, not just in terms of fact, but in tone. And CNN has had several missteps lately. They predicted that James Comey was going to say something that he didn't say. They had 3 journalists forced out over a story, the problems of which still have not been made completely clear. And now we have this, and it's just kind of strange. They didn't have to say anything because if this guy went off again and did something new, then they would naturally have the right to rethink whether they're going to name him or not. They didn't have to go through this smarmy, smug
schoolmarmer
statement.
swagger almost.
About, oh, well, we're not going to name him unless he's bad. Well, if he's bad again, then you can revisit the story.
Well, not only did they decide they were arbiters, they also decided they were crystal balls, because they're looking into the future to determine that he is never going to do this again. This is a guy who has a pattern in practice, this is what I follow, of saying some really awful things. Though he has a friend who's a Muslim and one who is Jewish. He lets us know. So I got a problem with that. That really irritates me. I do think it's ridiculous for them to put that in there, whoever inserted it. It takes us away from what the real issue was anyway. And by the way, I don't believe the presidential office that they did not get it from Reddit. So
I will say that there's this fascinating side issue about how much people should be held accountable for what they say online under these assumed names. And that was this guy's defense is, hey, I was trolling. Trolls do this trolling stuff. I didn't really mean it. And, you know, like Callie, you cannot buy that at all. But there is a different kind of behavior that people engage in online than they do in real life. And it's become really tricky, you know, especially if you're trying to morally arbitrate whether you're a university, thinking about admission for people, whether you're a news outlet. People, you know, we're really having trouble defining what's public and private in these anonymous online spheres.